Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, your host, and I'll be bringing you whiskey news, opinions, and reviews on the industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Now, I've got some big news today, guys, and no, it's not just the new book, which, by the way, is on Amazon.com, and I've got a link in the show notes to my new book. The name of the book is Whiskey Wisdom and Bourbon BS, Barrel Strength Legends, Lies, and Untold Tales. I command you to grab a copy, have a pour, have a few laughs, and you might, I said you might, even learn something along the way. I got to tell you guys, I learned a ton of stuff about the whiskey world putting that book together, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something too, and like I said, you'll have a few laughs, and more importantly, you get to have a pour while you're doing it. So there you go. Get one, help me out. Look, I get peanuts from it. Of course, Amazon gets the bulk of it. I get a little bit. Anyway, I thank you for your support, guys. It really does mean a ton. So I don't want to brag, but I've just been invited to the first ever UFC fight at the White House. Now, I'm not fighting, obviously, but I will be in charge of the bourbon concession stand. That's right. And nothing says American democracy like a neat pour of wild turkey while two guys punch each other in the face in the Rose Garden. Am I right? But yeah, no. I will not be doing that. What I will be doing, well, in fairness, I might be betting on that fight next year. And I'll probably, might even bring it up again here on the pod. But what I will be doing today is shamelessly plugging my new book and talking about bourbony goodness. I got a lot of big news to discuss today. I got a couple new releases, and I've got musings from the depths of my brain. But sadly, at least, I don't think there'll be any ranting today, guys. Who knows? The day is still young. So, Uncle Nearest, I've got an update on those guys. What a freaking mess that is. I've got some new releases, or what I'm going to call the Bourbon BOLO. Be on the lookout. What you need to be keeping your eyes peeled for. And I want to talk about whatever happened to sports cards. And does that even possibly relate to the whiskey world as we see it now? I've talked about that before, but I wanted to revisit that. It's been a long time since I talked about that. And finally, I taste and review something from our good friends at Still Austin that you all asked for. Remember, a few weeks ago, I asked you all to rank some bourbons and whiskeys for me to review. I've got so much piled around here. Don't tell my wife. I needed your help, right? I was having trouble sorting it out and focusing. You guys helped me focus. And today, that's why we're going to be drinking Still Austin, the Artist Straight Rye Whiskey. I do this for you guys. I really do. So here's the deal. I've got an update from our good friends at Uncle Nearest. Now, things are no bueno for them down there in Tennessee. And last we talked about the good uncle. A federal judge named Charles Ashley Jr., meaning nothing, was trying to decide if Nearest Green's going to get put under receivership after they were sued by Farm Credit Mid-America. Now, they filed an over $100 million lawsuit that they say they're owed. Now, that's allegedly, I don't want to be sued. They say I think it's $108 million. Well, guess what? The judge has made his decision, and he is appointed. This is crazy. He's appointed a dude named Philip G. Young, and that's not the crazy part. Philip G. Young to manage the brand and the distillery, this guy. Now, this comes after the lender sued them over those defaulted loans. And they claim allegedly they're owed $108 million, yada, yada, yada. Now, clearly the judge feels like something's going on here. But get this. I had no idea this could even happen. This guy, Philip Young, he was proposed, like his name was brought up by Fawn and Keith Weaver, the folks who run and own Uncle Nearest. So that's strange to me. What's even stranger is the judge agreed that this dude was the best choice because of experience in restructuring and bankruptcy situations. So keep in mind here, the goal is to preserve the company's assets, including the distillery property, and maintain operations while, sorting out this gigantic financial mess. Young is also authorized, if he needs to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the company. But at this point, the Weavers have been reluctant to do that. Now, there is some good news here in this scenario. The judge's order allows the Weavers to continue marketing Uncle Nearest and managing the brand, at least. They're not managing the company, but they are managing the brand. But under Young supervision, this is crazy, all financial records from July 2022 onward must be handed over, and Young is required to produce quarterly reports starting October 1st, and that seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, in a statement, Young emphasized that the day-to-day operations, whiskey production, and distribution will continue without interruption, which is good news, and he intends to manage the company in a way that benefits all stakeholders. Now, the Weavers, they issued their own statement. They say they support this appointment wholeheartedly of Young, and they noted that receiverships can be a tool to strengthen a company. I remember just a couple weeks ago. So this is kind of funny to me because just a couple short weeks ago, Keith Weaver was saying putting a receiver in charge would be catastrophic for the company because Fawn Weaver is the face of Uncle Nearest. And he said if she wasn't in charge, the whole thing would fall apart. Anyway, I guess this is probably a decent step in the right direction. I mean, they still get to have this guy that they kind of hand-picked in charge, which, again, I don't understand that. Oh, and Philip Young, he also promised updates throughout the process, and he reaffirmed the company's commitment to honoring the legacy of Nearest Green and producing award-winning Tennessee whiskey. Okay, sounds to me like the financial stuff for Nearest is serious, but the whiskey's still going to be flowing, and the brand is under court supervision, kind of keep things running, protect the long-term future. That's good news. Personally, I do hope they can keep their act together. I honestly am not the biggest fan of their whiskey, but if this goes sideways, it'd really screw up the whiskey world on multiple levels. So stay tuned, whiskey freaks. I'll keep you updated as this crazy saga unfolds. So I mentioned I had some new releases. I've got a Bourbon Bolo. Be on the lookout, guys. Keep your eyes peeled for these new releases. And I'm going to start today with our good friends at World Whiskey Society. Talk about these guys all the time. A lot of the things they do, they honor a lot of their offerings are honoring the Old West. And today is no different. The World Whiskey Society is honoring Old West legend Doc Holliday's birthday. That was just 2 weeks ago on August 14th with the launch of 4 new bourbons, the first ever cask-finished releases in the Doc Holliday lineup. And their collection includes Doc Holliday 8-year bourbon, finished in Oloroso sherry, Doc Holliday 13-year bourbon, also finished in Oloroso sherry casks, and Doc Holliday 8-year bourbon in Armagnac finish, and Doc Holliday 13-year also finished that way. Now, John Henry, or Doc Holliday, he was a dentist, he was a gambler, he was a gunfighter, and he became famous in large part for his role in the gunfight at the OK Corral and because he was good pals with Wyatt Earp. He's known for his grit and his daring, his spirit, and they say that has inspired these bourbon releases. Each whiskey is crafted in Kentucky and finished in these rare casks to add new depth. And they say the tasting notes of the Oloroso sherry finish for 8 years. Let me give you the mash bill first. It's 78 corn, 13 rye, 9% malted barley, and it offers caramelized sugar, dark chocolate, toasted almonds, and dried fruit with a spicy tobacco edge. That sounds absolutely fantastic. 13-year Oloroso sherry finish has aromas of red berries, brownie batter, and leather. Flavors of dried cherries, charred oak, pepper spice, yada, yada, yada. Again, sounds amazing. Now the Armagnac, the 8-year, this is interesting. It has notes of vanilla, caramel, toasted oak, figs, and apricot with a sweet and spicy profile. So that's considerably different than the sherry finish. And the 13-year has notes of apricot, baker's chocolate, and seasoned oak on the nose, followed by vanilla, raspberry caramel, and a dry, fruity, nutty finish. All of these sound amazing. Now, they say their CEO said this is a turning point for the Doc Holliday brand. He says they've taken a legendary figure and created a lineup that's equally bold, our first cask-finished bourbons that deliver innovation and depth. And you know where else you can get some sweet Doc Holliday stuff? Well, you can get them over at famousdocs.etsy.com. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Well, head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic Prohibition, Bourbon, Wild West, Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp, Billy the Kid, and gangster-related photographs and wall art. And if you purchase 4 or more items at one time, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com, famousdocs.etsy.com. I've got another great release here for you kids. It's out and it's brought to us by our good friends at Penelope, aka MGP. Well, as of May of, I think, 2023, when MGP bought Penelope for somewhere in the $105 million range. Anyway, Penelope Bourbon has just dropped their Black Walnut Old Fashioned ready to drink. This is the big craze now, evidently the ready to drink stuff. I guess they're appealing to the kids. I don't mean kids, but anybody younger than 30 to me is a kid, but 21 and over. But just like Jack Daniels, just like so many of the other brands are pushing or offering, they're not pushing, I guess, are advertising the ready-to-drink stuff because the younger kids are staying away from the harder liquor and drinking all together. So I guess they're making this stuff more flavorful and more appealing to them. But what they're saying at Penelope is they've got this bad boy ready for the ready-to-pour game. This is their second bottled cocktail coming to us from Penelope, and this one's the Black Walnut Old Fashioned. And personally, that sounds terrible to me. I'm going to be honest with you. They put out a peach old fashioned, and that sounds amazing. But now they've followed it up with this black walnut thing. I saw this at the liquor store about a week ago, and they had a gigantic pile of it, a big display. It doesn't appeal to me. The black walnut definitely doesn't appeal to me. They say it's built on Penelope's award-winning bourbon and rye blend. It's a 76 proof cocktail, which is pretty strong, actually. It mixes in vanilla demerara. Okay, really? Raw sugar and black walnut bitters for a rich twist on the classic. Flavor notes include toasted vanilla beans, maple candy, allspice, and cocoa powder with layers of brown sugar, cinnamon, candy, toffee, candied nuts, yada, yada, yada. I'd try it if somebody had it, or if I could get it for next to nothing at the bar, but I am not going to be buying a bottle of this. Now, good news, if I wanted to buy a bottle of it, it's only $29.99. It's available nationwide. This is not allocated by any means. It comes in a 750, which is great. There it is. If you're into that sort of thing, the black walnut doesn't resonate with me. But keep your eyes open. Be on the lookout for that. Old Fitzgerald has dropped its very, very special 2025 bourbon, and it's 11 years old this time around, guys. It's naturally bottled in bond, and it's the 4th release in their super limited, very, very special supercalifragilistic decanter series, following last year's very, very special supercalifragilistic 2024, because that was last year and now it's 2025. It was crowned best bourbon in the world at the World Whiskey Awards, and you know how I feel about that. The good folks at Heaven Hill say that master distiller Connor O'Driscoll, he picked barrels from deep inside Heaven Hill's rickhouses for this one. Okay, and I mean, what does that even mean? Are we talking about some like Indiana Jones style booby-trapped warehouse, some kind of shit like that, or like an escape room? What does that actually mean? Deep inside Heaven Hill's rickhouses. Okay, it's that weeded mash bill that we all have come to know and love from them. 68 corn, 20% wheat, 12% malted barley, and it's bottled at, I said I wasn't going to rant. It's bottled at 100 proof, and it comes in that signature ornate decanter, the decanter with the maroon label, so you know it's the special stuff. They say the tasting notes of this stuff is toasted bread, stewed apples on the nose, rich honey sweetness on the palate, with baking spices riding shotgun. Deep amber in the glass, smooth but complex. Basically the kind of pour that makes collectors line up. Yeah, they do. O'Driscoll says they let the whiskey tell them when it's ready. Let me say that again. O'Driscoll says they let the whiskey tell them when it's ready, and at 11 years this batch hit the sweet spot for depth and complexity. And again with the weirdness at Heaven Hill. Did they legalize weed in Kentucky and I didn't hear about it? I'm just asking for a friend. They let the whiskey tell them when it's ready. I wonder if you have to say it like that in Irish tones. Aye, the whiskey's telling me it's ready to bottle. That was a very, very terrible Irish accent. As much Irish as I have in me, I should do better than that. I apologize. Here's the catch, guys. It's highly allocated, duh, and you can only snag it at the Heaven Hill Bourbon Experience in Bardstown or select Kentucky retailers that you bribe. And the price tag is $169.99, but thankfully it does come in a $750, which is cool. Now this coincides very closely alongside Old Fitz's first nationwide bottled in bond 7-year that just came out. I think we talked about it in an episode ago or two. And that one just scored gold at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. But the VVS series remains the crown jewel for collectors. And the fine print, because it's bottled in bond, you're getting all that legal guarantee. And this is not trying to talk down to you folks. I had somebody, and I'm going to talk about that in another episode. I'm not talking down to you guys. I'm educating you. As I learn things, I'm sharing the knowledge, sharing the wealth, right? Because it's bottled in bond, you're getting all the legal guarantees from the 1897 Act. It's one distillation season, one distiller, one distillery, aged at least 4 years and bottled at 100 proof. Sports cards. I mentioned at the top of the show I was going to talk about sports cards and the sports card industry. So this is going to be kind of a throwback type of episode, I guess, guys. Not that I really planned it that way, but I kind of planned it that way, and so here we are. What I mean is, we touched on this topic a long time ago, back before everybody was sounding the alarm bells about the demise of the whiskey world, right? I was talking about it. I was right. And I think the best possible comparison I could come up with at the time was baseball cards in the 1990s. So think back with me, kids, to a time when we could actually ride our bikes up to the hardware store in our sleepy little towns, and we could buy whatchamacallit candy bars, and we could buy some Big League Chew, maybe a can of spray paint to repaint our bicycles, or some lumber to build a crazy ramp to jump, usually over fire. And of course, we pick up a couple packs of baseball cards. Back then, it was like 20 or 25 cents for a pack of, well, mostly we bought Topps cards with that. Remember that dusty pink stick of bubble gum inside it, the wax pack? That would have been about early 80s for me. And back then, the 80s and the early 90s, it was a boom time for sports cars. There were tons of companies flooding the market. Topps, you know these names, guys. Topps, Upper Deck, Fleer, Donruss, Score. Remember those crappy scorecards? They sucked. And there were many others. They were all competing to get our attention, get our money. But sadly, Score never really took off, at least for me. I think the scorecards were poorly made. Lots of off-center crap. Anyway, I leaned into Topps, even though they had a lot of off-center stuff too. But I think Topps was available everywhere. So maybe for that reason, I collected Topps. And I guess most folks did, really, because Topps is still around today. We were at the ball game here in St. Louis just a few weeks ago. They had a trailer outside the stadium, and they were giving away baseball cards. So Topps is still making cards and giving away cards. They're still thriving. But by the late 1990s, the market had become completely oversaturated, like by the tens of millions of cards being made every year. There were too many companies producing too many cards. They flooded the market and they drove down demand. And so price rose drastically for the newer stuff. I remember, and probably many of you do too. Gosh, going to the card shop, right? Would you ever walk into a sports card shop? We had a place called A Million Baseball Cards. It was in Manchester, Missouri, which, by the way, I believe after more than 30 years, it's still there. And I think the dude's name was Wally. I think his name was Wally. Anyway, it got to the point where you had too many options. You'd walk in there, you'd just be bombarded, right? Stuff like Stadium Club cards were super expensive back then. They started throwing in game-worn jersey swatches and all kinds of stuff into packs, numbered stuff, serial numbers. There was just way too much, and it was getting way too expensive, and I know I couldn't keep up. And guess what? As they churned out millions of cards, at the same time they're churning out these extra cards, there were fewer kids actually starting to collect the cards. So it was the rise of video games. Remember, guys? ColecoVision, people were playing their Nintendo, And that was back during the days of Atari, 2600, 5200. Remember that? Folks weren't collecting, the kids weren't collecting baseball cards. So it was a really sharp decline, actually. While they're producing more, kids are collecting less. Sounds familiar, right? I mean, look around, guys. We're there now. This overproduction, having less collectors, combined with the busting of that sports card bubble, what did it lead to? Well, it led to an industry downturn. Again, that sounds very familiar. Let me give you some examples. Specifics. I like to give specifics. Many smaller companies actually went out of business or were acquired. Again, sounding familiar, right? For example, Fleer, they were bought by Upper Deck in the early 2000s, and Don Russ, it had been around forever and a day, they were acquired by Panini in 2009. Now, some brands actually did survive by consolidating or focusing on niche markets. I did mention Topps. They managed to make it through. But a ton of companies, they just simply disappeared. And to make things worse, or better, depending on how you look at it, digital collectibles, which I don't get because I'm old, and that combined with consumer interest changing, played a big role in shaking up that traditional sports card market in the late 2000s, and now even till today. So, where are sports cards today? Well, this is pretty interesting to me and prescient, I think. Now, here in 2025, it's going to sound very similar to the whiskey world, guys. After that pandemic boom, and they had a pandemic boom for sports cards and baseball cards specifically in 2020, things finally started to level out. Prices started to stabilize, and collectors are now getting a bit more realistic and choosy about what they collect. Now, the overall market is still huge, but that's just simply because there are more people living on planet Earth. And big ticket sales, they are still making headlines. And my example here, my case in point, is Caitlin Clark. Everybody's heard of Caitlin Clark, whether you want to watch the WNBA or you're into all that. Whether you want to see it or hear about it, you hear about it and see it anyway. Well, in this case, Caitlin Clark's rookie card, this is nuts. It went for over $300,000. Actually, $317,000 to be exact. It was called the Caitlin Clark 2024 Panini Flawless Logo Woman rookie card. It was a one-of-a-kind, one-of-one edition featuring an autographed jersey patch, and it sold for $317K. Just, I think, 3 weeks ago, it was auctioned off, and some person thought, hey, I'm going to drop a whole pile of money on that. So people are definitely still chasing premium stuff and chasing that rare thing. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And there's been a rise in thefts. If you've been watching TV, a lot of the sports stars are being, their houses are being broken into. There's a big swing towards digital collectibles now too. I don't understand the digital part of that. I probably never will. But it is shaking up the old school card world again. So, as we take a look back when sports cards were everywhere and companies were pumping out endless sets and everybody thought the market would just keep going up and up and up forever, well, spoiler alert, it didn't. The market got flooded, collectors got burned, a ton of card companies went under, or like I said, they got swallowed up by bigger players. Is that ringing a bell yet? So what can we expect for bourbon and whiskey markets? I try to talk about this every few episodes. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, guys. I'm musing, I'm thinking, I'm dreaming. I feel like I have my pulse on what's going on, and I'm gathering all the information, and I'm really focused on it. I'm just going to share with you what I think. And I'm fast forwarding from sports cards here now to bourbon. We saw that similar bubble that they had in sports cards in bourbon recently. The limited releases, the insane secondary market prices, new brands popping up like mushrooms everywhere. But just like sports cards, the demand can't stay this hot forever. That evidence is already here with, look at it, Wild Turkey. They had bad news a few weeks ago. Garrett County Distilling went under. Uncle Nearest is screwed right now. Let me rephrase that. Uncle Nearest has some real problems right now. Wilderness Trail's been bought by Campari. Penelope was bought by MGP. The hits go on and on here, kids. It's the classic boom to bust cycle, and it's playing out right here in front of us instead of sports cards this time and the bourbon and whiskey market. And guys, this is my take on things. I love this stuff. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't have a positive attitude about it. I know that's sometimes hard to differentiate, right? But I can't ignore the reality. And hey, maybe talking about it here on the pod is actually cathartic for me. And for those of you with infinity bottles, cathartic means something that helps you release strong or repressed emotions. Yeah, I guess I'm still dealing with the sports cards thing after all of these years. So what does this mean for bourbon? Well, sports cards are any guide. We might be headed for a world where whiskey collectors start treating bottles kind of like rookie cards. I mean, think about it. You've seen the lines at the liquor stores, right? You've seen the releases at Heaven Hill. You see the guys stand out in the rain, the lightning, and the snow. You ever hear a birthday bourbon? You ever heard that mess in I don't know if they still stand out in the street on Whiskey Row, but I've seen it. Happy 23, limited releases. They're all the rage right now. They're selling out faster than us kids chasing a Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie card. And secondary market prices, they'll make your jaw drop faster than a chainsaw solo at a Jackal concert. See how I did that? See how I worked that in there? Pretty good callback, right, kids? But here's the kicker, guys. Just like in the card world, too many rare, air quotes, rare bottles could flood the market. That could be a problem for sure. Now, believe it or not, some distilleries will survive. And guess how they'll survive? They're going to actually make killer whiskey, while others are going to end up as those score baseball cards, overhyped, overproduced, low quality, and at this point, largely forgotten. Now, a lot of guys will tell you, keep your eyes open, because somewhere out there's that bourbon equivalent of a $317,000 Caitlin Clark rookie card. Or for us kids, if you're from my era, that would have been that beautiful Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck in mint condition, card number 1. You remember that one? It was number 1 in the set. I can still see it today. Takes me back, guys. But I think for me, and probably most of y'all, it's fine being the guy knocking back a $40 or $50 bourbon, or even occasionally some of the good stuff. Look, I enjoy my fair share of higher end stuff too. Like if you know, listening to the pod, I like to find things that you can find, things that you can afford. But I'm also going to be reviewing things and talking about things that are higher level bourbons and whiskeys. And that leads me to this. Stay tuned to the pod the next few weeks. I'm probably going to be doing a head-to-head between Elijah Craig, 18-year-old, and Knob Creek 18. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Bolo, that one, guys. I think it's probably fine for us guys to mostly be drinking that $40 and $50 stuff. You can find tons of stuff in that price range. Don't let the FOMO ruin everything, kids. Sometimes, and I get it, it's fun. The hunt, the stalking that one rare bottle, it's fun, I get it. But I say, why sweat the rare stuff when that $40 pour is still tasty and your wife hasn't left you yet? And by the way, the baseball cards you collect are still safely tucked away in the basement. Now on to the fun part, kids. Let's get right to it. You guys chose this one. I asked you, you came through, you voted, and today I'm going to be cracking open another one by popular demand. This one is going to be Still Austin, the Artist Straight Rye Whiskey, all the way from down south in Texas. Yeehaw! So I'm going to get into the deets real quick here, guys, but y'all know I'm into history. Did I mention my new book is all about whiskey history? Anyway, about Still Austin Whiskey Company. They opened their doors in 2017, and they became the first whiskey distillery within the Austin city limits since Prohibition. Still Austin is located in the heart of Austin, and they make its whiskey entirely in-house from grain to glass. Every bottle begins with 100%, they're very proud of this part, 100% Texas-grown grains, ensuring both quality and distinctly local taste of place. I don't know what that means. Master blender Nancy Fraley puts it this way. If every ingredient comes from the region and if the maker's passion is quality, then it will be absolutely a taste of place. But it will have more than that. It will give a sense of who you are as people. That doesn't make a damn bit of sense, but hey, I'm not the master blender at Still Austin. So one of the things that they're also focused on at Still Austin is the sourcing of their grain. And their primary grains are white corn, Brasetto rye, and Wildfire malted barley. And they come from Lone Star family farms in North and West Texas. Now, this third generation family farm focuses on conservation, organic growing, and non-GMO practices, setting a high bar for sustainable agriculture. And unlike many distillers they use commodity grains or just basic grains like yellow dent corn or Canadian winter wheat, Still Austin sources only from Texas farmers. Now, remember when we reviewed their high rye bourbon? They used I think the core mash bill for their flagship straight bourbon, and most of their standard releases still holds at 70% white corn, 25% rye, and 5% malted barley. And they use something unique there. They use this Elben rye to give it a special character. That's just a flashback to that previous review. If you want to see that review, I think it was a couple months back where we reviewed their bourbon. I think they've been experimenting down at Still Austin with different ryes. In the case of the Artist, it's a Brasetto rye. So they use the Elben rye, it looks like, for their bourbon, and they use Brasetto rye for the rye. Another aspect that makes Still Austin unique is that they age their whiskey in the Texas climate. And that wild Texas climate that's got swings of extreme temperatures of of almost 60 degrees in a single day can accelerate the maturation process. They say that rapid expansion and contraction in the barrel, it pulls out complex flavors faster than in more stable climates. And they say it gives Still Austin whiskeys rich character. So the straight rye whiskey shtick, and this is their words, not mine. This is what they say about the Artist straight rye whiskey. Art comes in many different forms, from the simplest line drawing to the most complex symphony, but all good art has something in common. It begins with inspiration. The artist is galvanized by a visit from the muse and can't help but take up the chisel, the pen, the camera, the paintbrush. This is a whiskey for the dreamers, the visionaries, and the artists who inspire us all. It's the ultimate marriage of the art and the muse. So these cats down in Texas are not what you would call cowboys. Now, I'm not sure what you call them, but it clearly isn't a dude wearing a big hat and cowboy boots. So anyway, Still Austin, the Artist. Let's get down into the deets. It is a straight rye whiskey. The distillery, like I said, is Still Austin, in Austin, interestingly enough. It was released the first time on December of 2022. Comes in at 99.6 proof, so that's good. Always like a whiskey near 100 proof. The age is 2 years, but I believe this one could be anywhere from 2 to 3 years. And the mash bill, I think I mentioned this early on, but I want to reiterate it. It's a Texas rye. It's a Brasetto rye. And what they say about is so darn special about this type of rye. Brasetto rye is a hybrid winter rye developed by KWS. It's a German seed breeding company, meaning nothing to no one here on the podcast, I'm sure. But Brasetto rye is non-GMO. And what that means, I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was just another one of these funky words. It's a catchphrase you got to say, right? Like sustainable, right? GMO means it's a conventionally bred hybrid variety developed through traditional crossbreeding techniques, not by genetic modification. A lot of people are into that. They don't want things to be genetically modified. Okay, fair enough. Its appeal to distilleries and farmers comes from its high yield and the fact that it's hardier during winter months. It's more disease resistant than other ryes, and you get more consistent grain quality, all without using genetically modified technology. So they call it a straight rye, and per TTB rules here in the US, that means a few things. Again, not talking down to you, just giving you information, guys. The mash bill must be at least 51% rye. We know it's 100% rye of that Brasetto, so it meets that criteria. The distillation proof, it cannot be distilled to more than 160 proof. We know that. It is 99.6 proof. The barrel aging, it must be aged in new charred oak barrels for a minimum of 2 years, and we know that for sure. It's aged for at least 2 years in that Texas climate. And the barrel entry proof must be no more than 125. We're going to take their word for that one. It can't have any additives. It cannot contain coloring, flavoring, or any other additives. Only water can be added to adjust the proof point. That's a straight rye whiskey, kids. A bit of book learning for you today, and as always, it's free of charge. All right, I promise no more school today. No more talking down to you. I can't wait to get into that one in the next episode. Anyway, the MSRP here is $43 at Total Wine in Fairview Heights, Illinois. I think you can probably buy it off. You can buy it off of. I double checked this actually off Still Austin's website for $45 plus shipping. So today I'm tasting with a Glencairn, my Stubborn German Brewery glass, Glencairn glass. And if you ever get the chance and you're in the St. Louis area, head on down to Waterloo, Illinois. These cats, Chris and Tammy Ron, they are cool people. Give them your business. Chris Rom is quite the beer maker. He's got a brewery and a whiskey club. So anyway, he knows what he's doing. Tammy's amazing. Good people. Give them your business down in Waterloo. They've got amazing beer. They make it there on site. More importantly to me, they have an outstanding bourbon and whiskey selection there in their bar. And don't forget, I don't know if I said this on the last episode, don't forget a notebook when you're tasting. Any notebook will do, or if you're too young to remember when the Hindenburg crashed, a computer works too. I like a notebook because, well, I'm old. But hey, you do you. It's pretty cool for me to track the tasting notes you get, like you get today, compare them to what you had back in the past or what you have in the future. I feel like I've been shocked many times at how much my palate's changed and developed over time. And jot down, when you're using your notebook, drop down not only the day and what you're drinking, drop down on that list what you ate and drank right before you tasted. Those things can totally mess with your experience. I've had barbecue or certain things before you taste that can drastically influence what you're going to experience. So write it down so you know what you were eating and what you were drinking right before you tasted. All right, let me crack this bottle open and get a pour of Still Austin, the Artist. Okay, in the bottle, it's got this fun artwork. I mean, you can imagine based on the description I read to you a few minutes ago. It's got some fun artwork on it. It's actually beautiful artwork of a young lady. She's an artist. She's got her brush in her hand and her color palette. It's real artsy-fartsy. It stands out. It's weird, just like these guys are. But it's a very cool bottle, and it's going to stand out from all the other old-timey looking bottles that you have on your shelf. So it's kind of cool. And the color. I need a little bit more in my glass here. Hang on. There we go. The color. And you know I say never judge the color by the bottle alone. And what that means is not just in the bottle, right? Let's pour it into a Glencairn. Let's hold it up to the light. Let's make sure the lights are turned on in the room. That way it will really help you evaluate what you're getting ready to have. In my opinion, the darker the hue of the whiskey in your glass, the deeper the flavors. And it's not always true. It is sometimes, it is most of the time. It's worth noting. And I'm going to say it every time, guys. The color of this one I would call is like a medium amber. It's for a 2-year-old whiskey. This it's actually very enticing. I'm liking it so far. Yeah, I know I shouldn't be making judgments this soon, but I like it. And on the nose, I'm getting a bright kind of burst of fruit and some floral notes here going on here right off the bat. Getting some honey. It's very pleasant. And just like the color, this is enticing. The nose is wanting to bring me in to sip this whiskey. Now, you know how sometimes a nose, it'll be off-putting, and you're like, I'm not sure about this one. Think Traveler, for example. Yeah, it's not that. Let me get a sip. Dang, that hits well. Big pop of rye spice. I love that. Let me get another sip real quick. Okay, there's that fruitiness that I got on the nose. It's like an orchard fruit. It's not pear, but it's still fruity. It's not peach. It's not pear. I can't put my finger on it, but it's this beautiful fruitiness that's coming through. Let me get another sip. Chocolatey goodness here, kids. I have never, okay, maybe not never, but I rarely can say that chocolate, that chocolate note that I'm getting here, this pronounced, and it just is. And the rye spice that's in here, the Brasetto rye, I don't know if that's what's causing this beautiful chocolatey goodness. It's leading kind of into this pleasant oakiness on the finish as well. Very spicy, very chocolatey. Let me get one more sip. I forgot to talk about mouthfeel. My bad. The mouthfeel of this, in all fairness, I'm looking at the legs in the glass too, because I believe they kind of coincide sometimes. And I forgot to tell you, it's kind of mid, the mouthfeel and the legs. It's not super oily. It's not thin. It's kind of mid-range. And the legs are pretty much the same thing, just mid-range. One final sip. Yeah. Chocolate. That's the name of the game here, kids. I am blown away by the chocolate note in here. I can only guess that Brasetto rye has something to do with it, and I'm loving it. And if I'm not losing my mind, I think there's even like a citrusy, like a beautiful orange note in here too. And if you listen to the pod, you know that orange or that citrusy note, the pleasant citrusy note, not that lemony citrusy note that we got off Ancient Age that time. This is more of an orange citrusy. I absolutely love that. That is a home run for me. And I was having a hard time coming up with a description for this additional taste I'm getting here, this whatever, this note. There is a lot going on here, actually, and I don't know that I'm describing it completely well for you guys, but I think I've narrowed it down to like a hint of earthiness and like this subtle, almost vanilla-like sweetness here on the finish. All rolled in with that chocolate, all rolled in with that orange zestiness. This stuff has got a lot of good things going for it. So what's the verdict? Well, we have 3 verdict options on Blind Tasting Podcast. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to collect it? Or are we going to cull it? To keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff's good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up on it because you can find it pretty much all the time. Collect it. Grab another bottle or maybe 2 since you find it so damn delicious, or it just may not be easy to get your hands on. Lastly, cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Still Austin, the artist, straight rye whiskey, I say, keep it. It's damn good. And the fruity notes, the terrific rye spice, that tinge of oak in here, it's so good. But for me, the showstopper, it's that chocolate note. Guys, grab at least 1 bottle of this stuff. I think they even have a bottled in bond version of this out there too. I'd have to look. I can only imagine what that bad boy might be at over 4 years or older. I don't know. I say get you some. Yeah, the Still Austin rye. It's young. It's somewhere between 2 and 3 years old, but it's surprisingly layered and it's got this developed profile without that harsh young whiskey note that you get. Think Pinhook rye, right? When I reviewed that a few months back, that was harsh. It was not bueno. This Still Austin, the artist, is, in my opinion, it's really terrific stuff. And for $43 to $45, you got to have one of these on your shelf. And if you spot the bottled in bond version at a bar, maybe give it a taste first at the bar, and that way you can compare it before you buy a bottle of that. I apologize, I didn't look up what a bottled in bond version of this rye would run you. They say that Kentucky isn't the only place you can find good whiskey. The folks at Still Austin, they say that. They're proud of their Texas heritage. They're proud of their roots. They're proud of all their ingredients and everything being done in Texas. And fair enough, they're a bit quirky. But damn, this is just a solid example of what modern Texas craft whiskey has done extremely well. So I say, cheers to you all at Still Austin. Last but not least, I got to give a shout out to the farmers, the distillery production guys and gals, the warehouse workers, the bottlers, and the truck drivers. I say this every time, guys, and it's true. They make it happen. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I've got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Go over to social media. Go over to Instagram at Blind Tasting Podcast or Facebook. I need you to follow. I need you to share. I need you to spread the whiskey gospel. Have a great day, guys. See you next time.